Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. Um, this is our first interview for this week as we kick off the 2022 Rail Week. Now, my name's Scott and I work for Primary Engineer. Before we start, I wanted to say a massive thank you for signing up to this year's competition. It's our 10th birthday this year, so we want to say a massive thank you for celebrating it with us. We can't wait to see all of your amazing and creative ideas. You're going to get some inspiration today from our special guest speaker, so you can answer the question, if you were an engineer, what would you do? Now, our special guest speaker is going to start with a 10-minute presentation all about what it's like to be working in the rail industry with Network Rail, and then we're going to open up to questions from the audience. But now I'm going to hand over to our wonderful special guest, Anthony Dewar.
Fantastic. Okay, great. Thank you very much. And good afternoon, everyone. I'm Anthony Dewar. I'm the head of buildings at Network Rail. And Network Rail is the company that owns and operates Britain's railway infrastructure. So we have over 20,000 miles of track, 30,000 bridges, and over 2,500 stations. And many of these stations are leased to train operating companies. So in Network Rail, why do we run a railway? Well, we run it for our passengers to allow people to trade, to communicate, to travel, to go on holiday. And we've got a whole different range of travellers on our railway network. We've got leisure travellers who find key information from our railway staff, or commuters who expect a reliable and punctual service, or disabled passengers or passengers with reduced mobility who also have to use our network. And I mentioned that we've got over 2,500 stations, and they can vary in size from this station I'm showing on the screen here, which is London Liverpool Street. That is one of our biggest stations within the UK, all the way down to some of our smallest stations. And this is a station, Burnley Arms in East Anglia, that is only accessible on foot by train or a boat. You can't get to this station by car. So just some information, I suppose, about how big our built environment estate is. So not only do we have stations, we've got 18,000 line-side buildings. We've got over 100,000 lighting columns on our network. We've got over 1,400 footbridges in our stations. And if you stack them end to end, they would span the English Channel. So we've got this massive estate of built environment assets. So why did I become an engineer? Well, I'm showing on screen here a picture of what was called a Walkman, and it was a sort of precursor to the iPod. And I remember my dad coming home when I was a primary school kid with this device, and me being absolutely fascinated by the technology of this device. But I was so fascinated that I actually took it apart. I just was so interested in how this thing worked, and you can see on the screen here what it was actually like inside. And I spent the evening unscrewing it and having a look at how it all fitted together. So I kind of knew then I wanted to be an engineer, but I became a civil engineer. And again, from around the same time when I was at primary school, I went on a site visit to the construction of this building, which is the British Library located in London, King's Cross, which houses all of our nation's books. And I went there as a young primary school student and saw them building that building. And this is a picture of the foundations of that. And I was absolutely fascinated by it. And then through school, both primary school and secondary school, and then at university, I studied civil engineering. And I left university about 21 years ago, and this is a picture of me as a younger chap 21 years ago when I first started working on the railway as a railway civil engineer. So what do? I thought it was easy to describe it yourselves, I hope, in three ways. I've designed lots of physical things, and I'll show you some pictures, some of the things that I've designed and we're designing now. I've also been involved in the construction of lots of physical things, and I'll show you some pictures of those. And also the maintenance. Once we've built some of bridges or buildings, they need to be maintained to ensure they're safe for people. But before I show you some pictures of some of the things that I've worked on, I thought I'd share with you where I've worked around the world. My work has taken me as far afield as New South Wales in Australia, Also, as far afield as Canada and America are very interested in the work that we're undertaking in the UK. And you can see quite extensively in Europe. And within the last 4 weeks, I've been to Berlin in Germany, Madrid in Spain, because all parts of the world are very interested in what we're doing on UK railways and looking at us as best practice. So I've designed, constructed and maintained bridges. And this is an example of a very old railway viaduct that we've got that requires special care and attention to maintain this bridge. I've done lots of tunnel work, and this is an example of another old Victorian tunnel that needed maintenance work to ensure that we could carry on running our trains. I've worked on earthworks, and earthworks are the ground that supports the train. And you can see here a picture of when we had quite a major incident where the earthworks were damaged after a flooding event. And I've also worked in the design, construction and maintenance of drainage. And you can see here a picture of when it doesn't go well and the tracks get flooded and we're then not able to run any trains. But I haven't just worked in railways, I've also worked in roads. And this is a picture of a road construction project that I worked on actually in Eastern Europe. And I worked on everything related to this road. So not only the design and construction of the road itself, but all the walls that had to support the roads, working on the ground, on the mountainside as well, to ensure that it didn't collapse onto the road. So as a civil engineer, my work has gone around the world and in lots of different technical ways. So here's an example of one of the very early design sketches I did of a piece of work looking at a new road bridge. This is an example of where I've been involved in construction, where we put a new station footbridge within a live railway station environment. And you can see the amount of work that's necessary there with cranes and large pieces of steelwork that had to be lifted into position, which we had to do in a safe way to ensure we didn't affect the trains and also our passengers. And an example of maintenance work, you can see here a very, very old bridge that we have to inspect on a regular basis to make sure the bridge is okay and that we can carry on running trains or a road can carry on going over the top. So we have a detailed look at the bridges every year. But I wanted to show you some examples of projects that my team and we've currently got underway. So this is an insight into a piece of augmented reality work. So this is running off of an iPad, and we've developed new station footbridge designs, which we can, using augmented reality on an iPad, show the different types of designs within a railway station. So you can see on the screen here the different footbridge designs that we've developed. This is another example of a piece of work that we've got underway in my team. It's machine learning. It's a parametric design where the computer is designing the bridge. So you can see on the screen here as the different toggles are clicked, the computer is changing the size, the shape of the bridge, putting a roof on, not putting a roof on, expanding the width of the bridge, expanding it across a number of tracks. So we're looking at computer-aided design, so trying to remove sort of human design intervention. And we're also working on a whole new suite of amazing bridges. So this bridge I showed you here, we're about to construct in the next 4 weeks. It's made entirely from stainless steel, so it doesn't need any maintenance work to it once we've built it. So there's some example of modern technology and modern design that we're doing. But also in my team, one of our responsibilities is to help future engineers understand how you design something. So we're developing a whole suite of design standards to allow future engineers understand how to make the station of the future. So for example, here you can see images of a new design standard that we've developed to help engineers understand how big the railway stations need to be in the future. What facilities do you need in the station of the future? And then coupled with that, we're developing a modular train station called Hub Station. It's a bit like an IKEA flat pack piece of furniture. And that is a design that can be rolled out across any railway station in the UK. It's a kit of parts, components. And here's a short video that you can see how that kit of parts goes together.
That is really cool.
So a quick snapshot of Hub Station. And then I just wanted to pose maybe two final challenges. First challenge, we're modernising in the railway, and we're trying to do, I suppose, what Ford did in the early 1900s, where they modernised the way that they built cars. And on the right-hand side here, you can see how cars are built using robots. We're looking to go towards Industry 4.0, which is using robots to help us build and construct bridges, tunnels, and earthworks. So we're looking at how we can get to Industry 4.0 using robots to help us do things more efficiently. And also the challenge of the environment, reaching net zero and being conscious and respective of our planet is very key and high and up on our agenda at the moment. So thank you for my whistle-stop tour of why I became an engineer, and I'd love to hear your questions.
But before we start, I actually have a question for you, Anthony. What do you love about your job?
So I absolutely love doing a job that makes a difference and makes a difference to a huge amount of people. So in our top 20 stations, there are over 1 billion passenger journeys per year in our top 20 stations. So all of the images I showed you there of new bridges, new stations, I get great delight, I suppose, from knowing that other human beings, it's going to help them in their life to go to school or to do business or to meet their friends.
It's brilliant. And you showed that it's Network Rail don't just do the big train stations, it's everything. That really, really small one you showed us that you can only get to by boat or by foot or by train. How many of those sort of really small train stations are there all across the UK?
Yeah, so Burnley Arms, the one I showed, is one of my absolute favourite small stations, and it is one of our smallest. I think it only has an annual footfall of 200 or so people that use that station each year. So 80% of the 2,500 stations in the UK are small stations. So
Wow.
the majority of the network is these small local community stations.
Wow. And so it supports everyone. It's not just for the big cities.
Yeah, that's right. And just this morning, I met with HS2 in discussing about the new high-speed railway that's planned to connect north to south and provide greater capacity on the rail network. So we've got high-speed routes. We've got what's called the classic network, and the classic network covers the whole of the UK from north to south to east to west.
I've just saw a question there, and it's about when you go traveling. So you showed us a map. You've been to Japan, Australia, America, Canada. When you go there, do you just meet people, or do you have to go to where they're building trains or building tracks? What do you do when you're in all these amazing countries?
So a mix of everything there, really. So when I was in Japan, for example, my team and I, we went out on the Japanese railway. So we actually went to inside a Japanese high-speed bullet train tunnel, and we looked at how the Japanese approach their work, how they maintain the tunnel, how they design the tunnel. So we were with Japanese engineers on the ground. 2 weeks ago, I was in Spain, in Madrid, and we met with the Spanish engineers to share how we design things and shared some of the techniques, but it was in an office environment. So it's everything, really, and that's what I'm not. Many of the exciting things of being an engineer is it's office based and it's practical based and can be very theoretical.
Amazing. Just being able to meet those people just sounds so much fun, and being able to see all the different places, because everywhere must do it a bit differently. But you said that the UK do it really well, and people around the world want to ask us how we do it. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So the stainless steel bridge that I showed you, it's called the Ava bridge, and it's a design that we've developed in Dewar Rail with a British designer, a British manufacturer who's actually never manufactured a bridge before, and
Wow.
a British construction firm. So it's an all British consortium, and it is gaining huge global interest because we're seen as being on the sort of cutting edge of uh, bridge design, railway design around the world. So I showed on the map there Canada.
Yeah.
Canada, they approached me directly because they'd heard through the internet of work that we'd been undertaking,
Oh,
and they were keen to learn from us.
that's amazing. So rather than sort of what you're like now, let's talk. You talked about your dad brought home a Walkman, which I remember having Walkmans when I was a kid, and I'm trying to think now what I do without my phone. But was there anything else at school you did? You said you managed to go and see the British Museum be built. What were you like in school? What was happening around then that sort of made you really interested in engineering?
Uh, Yeah, so in conjunction, when I mentioned about I always like building things, so
Yeah.
and taking things apart. So I showed about my Walkman that my dad was not happy that I destroyed it because I couldn't get it back together. I didn't say that, although I took it apart, it was it was ruined. I really enjoyed yes, the sort of STEM subjects, so maths, physics, and science, and yeah, that with my enjoyment, I suppose, of building. So Lego, for example, I remember
Yeah.
getting my first Lego Technics set, and you couldn't wrestle me away from it because I was so fascinated by it. So it's that combination, really, a very practical mind of wanting to build, as well as being interested in the STEM subject.
Yeah, you forgot to mention you didn't put it back together. I can imagine your dad being a bit upset. We've just got a question coming in as well from Jamie, and Jamie asks that you mentioned you work as part of a team. So, how many people do you work with or talk with each year? There must be quite a lot of people working on making our railways bigger, better, safer, and more sustainable.
Oh gosh, yeah, I'm not sure I'll be able to count that the number of people that I interact with because it's across the whole of the railway, but also outside of railway. There's a lot of interest in what we're doing in
Yeah.
the engineering profession. But so I suppose to give an idea of the size of my team, I've got a team of about 15 people, and
Wow.
within my team I've got engineers, so civil engineers and structural engineers, but I've also got architects within my team. I've got building surveyors who are trained in understand the fabric of the building, so the cladding, uh,
Oh.
the bricks, so specialists in that area, and also building services engineers, so engineers that have got a mechanical electrical background, so understand the wiring, air conditioning systems, fire alarm systems, so their expertise is in that area, and also effectively data scientists, so
Yeah.
engineers with an deep understanding of data and how data powers our decisions.
Yeah, and it's all different people all working together because it's such a big project. It must take a lot of people who are good at different things to pull it together.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges of the modern world is having now, yeah, a huge amount of data and being able to manage that data in quite multidisciplined environments. So I showed the image of the earthwork that had failed, where I showed
Yeah.
after a storm how the track was sort of hanging in the air. So as a civil engineer, you have to obviously understand the earthwork. You have to be able to interact with a track engineer who knows about track design. And you may have seen on that photo there were some sort of cables as well running by the side of the
Yeah.
track. So the civil engineer has to interact with the signalling team who own those cables and manage the signalling systems that allow the trains to run.
Brilliant. And Jamie's sort of asked another question that maybe fits into your presentation. You showed us the hubs and how technology is helping, and you even said about Industry 4.0. Jamie asks, what will the railway stations look like in the future?
Yeah, so this year we've really explored this area because I think there's a sort of traditional set of thinking that a station has got four walls and a roof, and a station of the future we're really pushing that it's more than a railway station. The station is a gateway to the railway, But as everyone on the call will know, it's a gateway to your community, isn't it? And the station has the potential to be used for far more than just selling tickets. It's got the potential to be used as a hub, and whether that's as a mobility hub for an electric vehicle or an electric scooter, or as a community hub, so for other facilities, so to act as a post office or a coffee shop or a bike hire or even a local doctor's surgery or heart clinic. We're promoting that the railway station of the future is more than there just to serve the railway.
Wow, because it is in the middle. It's the heart. I live in Edinburgh, and there's two massive train stations in the city centre. So if it was more than just a train station, it'd be really easy for people to get to. That's quite important.
Yeah, and I showed you Liverpool Street Station, which is one of our biggest stations in the City of London. I think about 70% of the people that are in that station aren't there to catch a train.
Wow.
They're there to use some of the retail facilities. So they're there to go shopping with a whole range of shops that we've got there, or to use the dining experience. There's a number of amazing restaurants there. Or there's even a gym in that railway station.
Oh, wow.
So railway stations are more than a railway station.
Another thing about the future of trains and railways, you talked about sustainability and climate change. Now, we know that public transport's a very good way to work on and travel. So what's the future going to be like when it comes to trains?
Yeah, so there's a whole team in Network Rail. They're called rolling stock engineers who are involved in the design of trains, the manufacture of trains. That's a whole specific technical discipline of expertise. I know that they're looking at new forms of traction, so battery powered trains, trains powered by hydrogen. And at COP26 last year, the UK was the first country in the world to showcase a hydrogen train, which we developed within the UK. So there's a lot of work being undertaken about how do we make both trains environmentally friendly and all of the infrastructure. So everything I showed you, the bridges, the stations, environmentally friendly as well.
It's a big job, but it needs to be done. We've got another question in there from Kieran. He says, how often do you spend working in the office and on sites, and how much do you travel to go to visit in place and out in the world?
Okay, yeah, great question, Kieran. So it varies. When I first started as an engineer, I was out on site 100% of the time, all of the time. Wow. When I was doing construction work, working out on the site, building bridges and the roads that I showed you. As I've progressed through my career, I suppose, chosen a path where I'm probably 20% out on site, 80% meeting other engineers, other key important people to liaise with to get things done. But being an engineer offers multiple different routes. So if I'd wanted to stay working on site, I could have done. And that is one of the many things that I think is great about being a civil engineer, that the career offers you a number of different things that you can do, whether it's in the UK or around the world. And if you want to be really practical as an engineer, you can do very practical things. If you want to do more engagement with other people, you can do that. It has so many different options.
Yeah, it really sounds like it, going from 100% out there to now being in the office, but you got to kind of choose that. Sounds really exciting. If we've got time for a couple more questions, so if anyone's got anything burning they'd like to ask, but I do have one for you, Anthony. What are you working on just now?
So just now, we are working on a new signage. So signage within the railway stations, looking at how we can make the signage easier to understand, and how we can set signage up for the digital future. So looking at electronic screens for signage, and then using those screens for more than just showing signage. So advertising, other passenger information. We're also developing, I'm trying to think how to describe it. It's an electronic model that allows you to build your own station. So I showed the augmented reality of the footbridge. Yeah. We're developing something similar for a railway station, where you'll be able to build your own railway station and then projected in augmented reality, so you can see it in your own community. This is what a station would look like if it came to us.
Wow. So you said you've been working in the rail sector for 21 years. How much has technology changed since you started? I can't imagine there was iPads showing you the different ways a bridge would look.
Well, yeah, and I showed the image of the Walkman, which I chuckled when I found that on the internet to be able to show you today, because technology has come on hugely. I mean, it's difficult to convey how much it has changed, and it's changed and helped us make much better decisions. When I first started as an engineer, I actually had to share a computer in my office. You didn't have your own personal computer. So it shows in 21 years how, I've got in front of me now about 4 computers. The one I'm talking to you on, I've got an iPad and 2 phones. So I'm now surrounded by digital technology.
Brilliant. So it sounds like the future train stations will be as well.
Yes, definitely.
Brilliant. Well, I just want to, just looking at the time there, I just want to thank everyone out there for joining us, and a special thanks to Anthony for coming on today and helping inspire all the engineers in the making who are out there watching this. Now it's your turn to come up with your own engineering ideas. Remember, and send them to us once you've finished so that we can get certificates sent out, and we'll hopefully see you in person at our public exhibitions in May. So thank you everyone for joining us, and remember, if you were an engineer, what would you do?